Tennessee wrapped up its recruiting class with the number 11 ranked class in the nation per 247 Sports Composite. They've got 23 enrollees already, 2 who signed letter of intents, Charles House and Joaquin Dotson, plus 4 transfers. So as of right now, they will officially have 29 new players next year. No junior college players. So when you take out the transfers, 25 players that they signed out of high school. They had no activity on National Signing Day, and their class finished outside of the top 10, and their transfer rank finished outside of the top 80. So let's play a little hot or cold. Is this good enough for Tennessee to be a national title contender? And I'm going to talk about a few strategies they're having right now. And I want you guys to tell me, are you hot or cold? First, hot or cold, Tennessee having the number 11 ranked recruiting class. Is that enough to win the national title, particularly when there are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's right, 7 SEC schools ahead of them. Hot or cold? I'm going to say hot. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't think people understand how recruiting works anymore. It's not stacking up top 5 classes and making sure you win the national title. It's meticulously recruiting to fill needs and address voids on your team, similar to how the NFL does it. And Tennessee recruited very meticulously this year. They found an offensive tackle who is the crown jewel of their class in David Sanders, who they believe they can plug in to start immediately. David Sanders is Tennessee's most highly touted recruit since Eric Berry. I'm not talking about the most important, Nico Imaliavas, that guy. I'm talking about the one when it comes to ratings. David Sanders is their highest rated recruit since Eric Berry. Look it up. On top of that, you have Deshaun Brame, who got a 4th star added to his recruiting just recently, a 5th star on a couple of services. They have stocked up on defensive linemen after just losing quite a few. Marion Dye, Isaiah Campbell. They had some issues at receiver. They lost 3 to the portal. They added 3. They're hoping that one of them could squeeze into the slot. They have a good backup quarterback now in George McIntyre, who may compete for the starting job. Just saying. They were short on linebacker depth, so they added Christian Gass and Jaden Perlow. And Jaden Harmon, by the way. They needed some help at running back, and they added Don Morris and Justin Baker. So they specifically addressed needs. So I'm hot on that. But I'm hot on that for the second part of the strategy, which is, are you hot on the idea of them valuing? Actually, I'm going to save that hot. This is the next part of the strategy. Are you hot on them focusing on getting their recruits onto campus early, as early enrollees, so they can work with them, rather than wasting time trying to find splash recruits to upgrade their class at the very end in February? I'm cold on that. And I'm honestly telling you the truth. This is why I think they didn't have any movement National Signing Day. I think Heupel spends a lot of effort trying to get his kids onto campus as early as possible. That's one of the reasons he wants people like Brandon Anderson to shut down their recruitment, and Brandon Anderson then decommits for 2026. But Brandon Anderson is still looking at Tennessee and Josh Heupel, so maybe Heupel's on to something. But the reason he does that is because while the quarterbacks can pick up the offense very easily, receivers have a bit of a learning curve in this offense, and so do linemen. So I think Heupel wants them in early, because if he can get them through a spring, he can get a head start to have them more ready to go when it's time. But I'm still cold on it, because I think you're wasting potential for some real talented guys in that gap between December and February, when there are still a few available elite superstar players that can really spike your class up. And if you're having trouble getting them, and it's because you desperately need to get these early enrollees focused on football and developing in the system, maybe you should simplify a little bit of what you do, honestly. So I'm kind of cold on that. I'm not the biggest fan of it, if I'm telling you the truth. I think Josh Heupel maybe needs to focus a little more on adding a couple of splash players, even if he loses out on a couple of guys that just won't be early enrollees. He's trying to sign guys. He's trying to focus on early enrollees. That's why he's trying to focus so heavily in the early signing period and only focus on guys that'll sign then. And I think it's costing him to a certain degree. Final hot or cold will be about the overall strategy. Hot or cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. That's right, City Heating and Air, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. CityHeatandAir.com, CityHeatandAir.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
All right, so the final hot or cold. Tennessee is valuing and focusing their NIL money on players returning rather than getting new commitments. Are we hot or cold on that? 5 years ago, I would have been as cold as you could possibly be. I'd have been as cold as you could possibly be. I would have said that's ridiculous. I would have had a big problem with that way of doing things because you got to get the talent and you got to stack the talent. But in this era of the transfer portal, of NIL, where you're kind of built like an NFL team, where if you go down a guy, you really have a big drop off in most places. I actually think I'm pretty hot on this. Honestly. I think chemistry can outweigh a lot of things. And I just go back to Michigan a couple of years ago when they won the national title. Michigan, yes, there was Ohio State this past year that had the best team money could buy with $20 million. They still lost 2 games, by the way. Michigan went undefeated. And it was it's because of their Those Who Stay campaign. They focused all their NIL efforts on spending the money to keep the players from the 2022 team and trying to get as many of them to stay as possible. These guys were late round NFL draft picks. They were not first rounders. They weren't going to blow you away as top four round NFL draft picks, but Michigan valued them enough to still try to keep them around because usually if you're a late rounder, you still leave early. Michigan realized that if they could load up on fringe late rounders and keep them in the program, that level of chemistry is enough to go win a national title. And Michigan looked like they were far and away the most disciplined team in college football 2 years ago. And it didn't matter if Jim Harbaugh was on the sideline or not. They were the most disciplined team in college football, and it paid off. I think Tennessee's adopting that model, and I think it's a smart model. I think this day and age, you want guys that have experience playing together. I think that can limit your mistakes. It's just as similar as in the NFL, where it's very clear that when playoff time comes, the 2 biggest factors are who's healthy and also who's got the experience playing together. And teams that build through the draft typically play together better in the NFL. I mean, that happens all the time. Now, teams that go through free agency still can win the title, the Super Bowl, but they usually take a few years to do it. They have to have been playing together for a few years. That's why you see a lot of backloaded contracts. Tennessee is focused on they're focused more on how to keep a guy than how to get a guy. They're one of the only schools that's doing that in college football. Josh Pate said that while every other school is focused on the A part of the NIL, which is getting the player, Tennessee's focused on A, B, C, D, E, and F. And they're not going to sacrifice F for A. That's a big part of what Tennessee does. So that is why I am hot, and you should be hot on what Tennessee's doing, because honestly, to be fair to them, I think that they have a desire to keep players in to build a level of chemistry. And I think that's why this National Signing Day was relatively quiet. Matt brings up that Tennessee lost 14 players to the transfer portal. How many did they want to keep? Look, outside of Squirrel White, Matt, I'm going to be honest, I don't think they cared to keep that many. Okay? That's the point of this, is everybody's losing players to the transfer portal. Everybody. The question is, how many key players are you losing to the portal? Tennessee lost 1 player that we think they might have wanted to keep in Squirrel White to the transfer portal. That's it. They got everybody else back that they wanted, okay? So I got to be honest, I don't think this is as big of a deal. I want to set this up as a poll question real quick. What do you think of Tennessee's number 11 recruiting class for 2025? Fine. How about this? Great. fine, not good enough. There's more than just recruiting rankings. How about this? There's more than just. Let's see. How do you guys think I should phrase this? There's more than just recruit. How about this? Recruiting rankings overrated. Here we go. Okay, so here's the poll question. I'm setting it up for you guys now. What do you think of Tennessee's number 11 recruiting class for 2025? Great, fine, not good enough. Recruiting rankings are overrated. That is how we're going to phrase this for now. I'll say recruiting rankings are overrated, and I wouldn't have said that 5 years ago. But in the age of NIL, there are things that matter more. Okay, so I don't think it's as big of a deal as people think.